After going through the game with every single character it has to offer, we now need to rank them from worst to best and see how they stack up against each other. For the worst character in the entire game, I would have to say it's Thumper. It's going to be a common theme going forward, but ramming damage is actually an issue in this game. The power of it is like none other. Imagine running up to a lion, challenging the beast to a fist fight and expecting to win. That's just not going to happen, just like the enjoyment with this character. You have a game where ram damage is insane, then you give a character with middling armor a special that's made to be used at super close range. Why not just play a character where you don't need to wait for the special to regenerate, trap them in a corner, and turn your enemies into scrap metal? Your only use is to freeze someone and get damage off that way. Again, why not just play a character who can ram? The handling and speed is not very good on Thumper either, so this is one of the few characters in this whole franchise that has zero strengths in game and has no reason to play as them. If ramming damage wasn't so overpowered, then he'd be pretty good actually, but sadly that's not the case here. Hit Viper, or Shit Viper, whichever you want to call her, comes up next, well, because the special is just bad. I think you can juggle people with it if you use it correctly, which is easier said than done and not reliable to pull off consistently. Your handling and speed are fine, but there are just characters who do it better, which is a common theme I've noticed in a lot of these games where you have multiple characters who are very similar, but one of them is typically better than the other one, making characters like Pit Viper useless. You could change Thumper or Pit Viper around for being the worst character in this game, since there's great reasonings for both of them. For me, I just think Thumper is slightly worse than Pit Viper because her special can actually be used at a range and you don't need to risk going in head on into someone who can instantly kill you by sneezing at you. Grimm Fury is someone who shocked me. I thought this character was going to be a complete worthless piece of dog shit, but the special is much stronger than I anticipated. You start every level with 6 of them and it has a very fast regeneration rate. The issue is the inconsistency of the weapon. It is so hard to actually hit people with it since you're shooting this little red sperm pellet. I had these moments where the attack went straight through people because of how precise you need to be. He is the fastest car in the game, which is an issue to me. Controlling characters at high speeds in Twisted Metal 1 and 2 is overly difficult since they cut through space and time when you accelerate. Giving a character who is very hard to control a special you need to be overly precise with in a game where the best strategy is low effort ramming. What is the point of learning how to do that when I can just ram my fist in your anus as Hammerhead and kill you? Crimson Fury's armor is made out of paper mache and it is so hard to survive with the tools that you're provided with. Yellow Jacket is the middle character. Even his stats in game are all average. His special is serviceable, his handling and control is fine. There is no strong suits whatsoever with this character, which may sound like a bad thing, but it's not. Everyone below him has little to no strength at all, or has a massive weakness, making them not very fun to play. Crimson Fury has weak armor, Pit Viper and Thumper have no real strengths at all. Yellow Jacket can hit people at a range, take a beating, and control very well. He's just a perfectly rounded character and the definition of an average Joe. Outlaw varies in viability from game to game. Here in the first one, he's decent but not great. Almost everything is middling for him. The armor is slightly above average, but the speed and handling are below. While it's not very strong damage-wise, the simple fact that you don't need to aim it or use any thinking whatsoever to hit your targets makes him better than the previous characters. Being able to hit people through walls is a very big plus as well. Sometimes it can be hard for the beam to connect. You'd think at moments your special would hit them, and sometimes it just doesn't for whatever reason. He's not bad, but not good either. You could change him out with Yellow Jacket depending on how well you are at controlling the game. Yellow Jacket would probably be a better choice here if you have a PhD in the old Twisted Metal game controls. For me, I just felt being able to hit people through walls was much better than the Yellow Jacket special. Spectre is a fast guy. He is the Twisted Metal Sonic the Hedgehog. Even though he's a faster character, which I typically don't like to use in the older single track games, the Ghost Missile is just pussy play when it actually works in this game, which is something I should highlight because for some reason this thing just does whatever it feels like a lot of the time. Instead of going after targets, it will zip around going inside of buildings or going through the ground, spinning around when you're sitting there aiming it right at someone, which can be really annoying. But when the thing actually goes for the person you're shooting at, having the ability to sit above someone and just have this missile that in theory cannot miss is a very strong thing to have in a game like Twisted Metal. If you have a PhD in this series and able to harness the beast, which is being able to control the game, the value of this character is so much higher than Crimson Fury. He may not go as fast, but Spectre is much better on the special alone. Mr. Grimm is always one of my favorites to use in every single Twisted Metal game. His special is the strongest in the game with raw damage. You can kill a lot of the weaker characters with ease, do massive amounts of damage to Darkseid and friends, or even Minion himself. The range on it is forgiving enough to allow the player to get hits they shouldn't a lot of the time. That's the power of this guy. It just flies and does fucking damage. Sadly, he does not have the ability to ram anyone. He is one of the characters where if you touch anybody, like at all, Dead or not, around half your health is gone, which is fucking stupid, but that's how Twisted Metal 1 is. The ramming is too powerful in this game. Out of every character who does not have the ability to get good ramming damage, he is the best, which is really sad to say because in the future games, he starts getting worse and worse and worse, so this is the last time, ironically, because it's the first game, that he's actually a really good character. Not even just good, he's a great character. We are now in the vanilla zone. It is very apparent of why all these upcoming characters are better than the rest of the ones mentioned. They all have good ramming damage. It varies between each of the characters, but with how broken it is in this game, regardless of how completely and utterly disgustingly worthless Darkseid special is, how awful it feels to control this guy, his ramming is so powerful it makes him better than anyone else mentioned so far. Ramming does not have a cooldown. You don't need to pick anything up to do it, maybe aside from Turbo, but other than his ramming, he's a worthless piece of trash character with the worst special in the entire franchise. If ramming was not so broken, he would be the worst character in the game by far. Mr. Tooth is a staple in this franchise. He's the mascot, and thankfully he's actually really good in this game. He has sufficient ramming damage with great armor and a special that packs a punch. The flaming sock he shoots out of his grill is a real monster. The only weakness he has is that controlling him can be kind of hard since he slides around like you're on a goddamn ice skating rink, but that's to be expected with the larger characters in this game. Using his special, then turbo ramming someone against the wall is a very strong combo, especially against the weaker opponents in this game. Hammerhead is a big fuck who does a lot of damage. Everyone you go against will be crushed beneath your wheels, and the moments I tested during my playthrough, having one-on-one ramming battles with Darkseid, I always came out on top as Hammerhead, so I would say his ramming is the best in the game. His special is attached to it, which is a good and bad thing. Obviously you want to be close to someone and crush them to death, but ramming someone is not always the best option. Sometimes you need to rely on a ranged special if you have low health, but with Hammerhead you cannot do that. Going against Minion is very difficult with him. Your ramming damage is great, but Minion will still kill you very fast if you try to ram him to death. Plus the fact your special can be used on its own is a huge issue, which makes me sick that Twisted Metal 2 did not rectify that problem where your special can be used on an already destroyed car, wasting it in some cases. Hammerhead is similar to Darkseid. If ramming was not so strong, the character would suck. I only put him over Mr. Tooth because he can take much more abuse, and if anyone even tries to come near you, they'll take so much damage. Roadkill is another character that really surprised me. He's such a great character in this game. The Crackhead himself has a damaging special that even homes in on targets slightly. He can take a beating, having much more armor than I ever anticipated. He controls very similar to Yellow Jacket, which is a big plus. A lot of these heavy armored cars control like rat shit and you slip and slide everywhere, but with Roadkill that doesn't happen. You don't have Hammerhead or Darkseid ramming damage, but you can do a lot to the medium and smaller cars while also having a ranged special that does damage, making him one of the best characters in the game. He gives you the best of both worlds. Of course, if you know anything about this game, you know the best character in the game is Warthog. It's pretty obvious going into this how broken he actually is. You have a homing special that does decent damage, you control slightly worse than Roadkill, but it's still easily controllable, while also having slightly weaker ramming damage than Darkseid or Hammerhead and a ridiculous amount of armor. To put it simply, you have a character who control as well as average characters, armor on the levels of the highest in the game, and ramming damage that's on the same levels as some of the strongest characters in the game, and a special that also tracks targets. There is nothing else to say. You can put together how insane he is, and it's very rare to find characters who are noticeably better than every other character in the game, but he definitely fits in that camp. I did want to include Minion on here, but the only way you can actually play as the character, which I use very loosely, is if you make the game think you're Minion, but you're actually not. There is a cheat you can use that allows any character to use the Minion special. In that moment, for some reason, the game sees you as Minion, so you get his armor, handling, and speed. All of it is clearly broken, and he's in the running of being one of the best characters in the entire series. As I said, you need to cheat so you can use him, but he really gives Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal 4 a run for his money for being a broken mess. The special can rip anyone to pieces in seconds. Your missile's speed is actually faster, which is very interesting, and it's an absolute disaster using this character. If you compare him to other characters we cheated to use like Darkseid, Primeval, and Darktooth, he's much better than all three of them, no contest. Making this list is very film grain and straightforward because it's very expected who the characters are on top and why. Unfortunately, that's just how the game was balanced out. If someone has ramming damage, they're better than all the other characters who don't. You can even kill people after death with ramming. That is how insane and broken it actually is, no exaggeration whatsoever.